LOLC Securities Weekly Market Roundup. I am Megara Vijayamana.
And I am Tharadu Amrasekara. This is the sound of profitability.
As official data shows, Sri Lanka's gross foreign reserves grew by $6,166 million in August 2025. This is a rise by $19 million amid concerns over the pace of reserve collections and rate cuts.
Sri Lanka's gross official reserves is down by $306 million from October 2024 when the central bank began running inflationary policy, operating an abundant reserve regime, injecting vast amounts of liquidity to target a short-term rate. As a result, by December, the agency barely collected $12 million from markets. The central bank in the first quarter withdrew some of the liquidity as credit slowed and it was able to buy dollars. But concerns have been raised about the lack of active deflationary policy to collect more reserves.
Sri Lanka's renewable energy generation rose to 73% in June 2025. This is a sharp increase from the 62% of 1 year ago. This was mainly due to higher power generation from hydropower sources by the CEB, as well as solar and other renewable power generation from the private sector. In June 2025, the CEB's hydro generation grew 33.8% to 626 gigawatt hours, making up 33.8% of energy, overtaking coal. Private renewable power made up solar, wind and mini hydro grew 28.7% to 413 gigawatt hours. CEB's own wind plant generated 52 gigawatt hours of power in June, down from 62 gigawatt hours in May. Total renewable energy generated topped 1,091 gigawatt hours out of a total of 1,495 gigawatt hours, or 73%.
Sri Lanka inflation in the capital of Colombo rose by 2% over the 35 months since September 2022.
Sri Lanka's Colombo Consumer Price Index fell by 0.4% absolutely in the month of August to 193.3 points after falling by 0.2% in July. The CCPI index is now at levels seen in November 2023. However, in September and October 2024, the index dropped below 190 points, which can lead to higher 12-month inflation next month. In July and August 2025, the food sub-index fell steeply from 249.3 to 239.4 points. The food price index is now 3% below what it was in September 2022 after briefly reaching crisis-level highs in June. Sri Lanka money market has seen high levels of excess liquidity, including from dollar-rupee swaps early in 2025, which has since come down.
And now it's time for the corporate highlights.
Sri Lanka's Ambion Capital has bought 18.5 million ordinary shares of Myland Development, upping its stake to 51.03%. 18.5 million shares were bought at 8.5 rupees apiece, Ambion Capital said in a stock exchange announcement. Together with three other investors, ATX Partners, Acacia Investment and Trading, and Sujeeva Mudalige, acting in concert with Ambion Capital, the company will acquire 81.73% of the total issued shares of Myland Developments.
Businessman Dhammika Pereira is buying into Sri Lanka's diversified LOLC Group, taking in 39% stake of the holding company.
LOLC has interest in liquefied petroleum gas, shipping renewable power, fuel distribution, retail, manufacturing, among others. LOLC Gas, which has the flagship LPG business, posted gross profits of $888 million for the June quarter, but had finance cost of 733 million rupees, triggering loss for the quarter. It had 12 billion rupees of long-term loans and 19 billion in short-term borrowings. Market estimates range from around 5 to 7 billion rupees for the deal.
News from the financial services sector. LOLC Finance PLC has announced plans to raise 20 billion rupees via a listed debenture issue. Its board has resolved to issue up to 200 million listed rated unsecured senior redeemable debentures worth 20 billion rupees. The issue has been approved by the central bank.
Here is Tadindu with the ESG update of the week.
Vietnam has approved the transfer of 1 million tons of surplus CO2 reductions to the IBRD. 95% of this will be reassigned to Vietnam to help them meet the Paris Agreement commitments. The credits are part of the 5.9 million tons of surplus CO2 reductions achieved during the 2018-19 period. The ERPA first signed in 2020 between the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development and the IBRD in Vietnam originally covered 10.3 million tons of reductions. Actual performance exceeded the expectations, leaving a surplus that is now partially monetized. With an average transfer price of $5 per ton based on earlier payment terms, the additional credits are expected to bring in about $5 million. Funds raised will be distributed to forest owners, commune authorities, and organizers managing natural forests. Time for this week's international updates. OPEC Plus will be increasing its oil production but will be adding less oil to the markets compared to the recent months starting from October, given the possibility of the global demand for oil slowing down. OPEC Plus has reversed its strategy of output cuts from April and has already raised quotas by about 2.5 million barrels per day, about 2.4% of the world demand, to boost market share and under pressure from US President Donald Trump to lower oil prices. But those increases have failed to significantly dent oil prices, which are trading near $66 a barrel, supported by Western sanctions on Russia and Iran, encouraging further production gains in rivals such as the United States. Another output boost would mean OPEC Plus, which pumps about half of the world's oil, would begin to unwind a second layer of cuts of about 1.65 million barrels per day, more than a year ahead of schedule.
Gold prices surged to unprecedented highs, breaking the $3,650 barrier for the first time in history in anticipation of Federal Reserve rate cuts this month.
The rally in gold comes amid growing expectations of an interest rate reduction from the US Federal Reserve. Traders are pricing in an 89.4% chance of a 25 basis point rate cut at the Fed's upcoming meeting. There is also a 10.6% probability of a more aggressive 50 basis point cut. Gold price has more than doubled in the last 3 years, driven by an increase in geopolitical, economic, and trade risk, all of which have spurred demand for safe haven assets.
And that's it for this week's LOLC Securities Weekly Market Roundup. No matter what investment decision you make,